Yes, and they've never taken all the drugs using the so much.
Hi, welcome everyone.
Like I said, don't want to
In
be.
case you didn't know, you are here for an experiment in online chemistry, an asynchronous non-majors general chemistry course presented by Professor Melissa Deri. She teaches here at Lehman, and I will give it to her now.
Thank you very much for the introduction. So I didn't realize that until the introduction, I didn't feel like my title was ominous, but when it was "You're here for an experiment," it felt a bit ominous. But today I'm just going to talk about a course I've been developing over the last year and a half for a non-majors chemistry course, and I'll give some context for what that course is. Here at Lehman, it's Chemistry 114. It's called Essentials of General Chemistry. So it's only a single semester course. For science majors, or chemistry majors specifically, we take a full year of general chemistry over 2 semesters. For non-majors, it's abbreviated into a single semester, and it doesn't go into as much depth, but we cover a significant amount of content. The course is currently being taught over 3 different sections, so depending on fall or spring sessions, we usually have in the area of 200 to 300 students. And for the people who are taking this as a requirement, it tends to be a very high pressure, high competition class for people who want to get into the nursing program, especially here at Lehman. So our students are mostly pre-nursing and people in the nutrition or dietetics program. They're Lehman students, so we tend to have people who have other obligations outside of school. So they're working jobs, they're taking a million classes, they're doing everything at once. So we try to make sure everything's supported. Usually, if you're not a science major, chemistry feels big and scary, so they don't come into my class very excited about my content, but I am a barrier to them sometimes. That's the impression. And we often have issues that they're underprepared in math, but depending on how many years it's been since I took a math course, most of what they're doing otherwise doesn't require the same level. So people for an education technology conference are probably seen this graphic or a similar graphic many times, with the idea that we're moving pedagogically from a traditional classroom lecture to making the most of our class time and doing more active learning inside the classroom. This has led to a lot of work on creation of videos for delivering lecture outside of class. So Professor Pam Mills and Don McGregor were at Hunter before coming to Lehman, and they developed a flipped classroom method for general chemistry courses, for the full major year general chemistry course in 2014. This involved the creation of almost 200 custom-made course videos, and they came up to Lehman in 2015 and brought this with them. And we actually did, how I started at Lehman was studying this method and the implementation over the 2 schools, and going through the data we saw that implementing the flipped classroom was a boon to students at Hunter and Lehman College, but even more specifically at Lehman, we saw huge changes from majority of students actually failing our chemistry classes to much higher passing rates. So the flipped model was looking great, and after I came up to Lehman, I started developing and adapting the majors course, selectively picking out parts of it to cover for the non-majors course. Let's see if we can get our full student body to get the same advantage as our chemistry majors. So the flipped classroom that they developed was making a lot of changes in what's going on of the student experience. It involved watching videos at home. They have problems in all of the videos. We started doing online homework questions, and then the clicker class was what we actually did in class time. But otherwise, the exams haven't really changed. So for the flipped classroom, very briefly, in case not everyone's familiar, we have custom-made course videos that they watch, and then they go in the videos, they're prompted to pause the video, start working through problems, and then they get the solutions to the problems. When they come to class, they do clicker questions. If you are very interested in clicker class, there's going to be an excellent talk later from Donna McGregor, who will be here at 11:50 to talk about that in depth, but she's teaching right now. And then online homework, we ended up using Sapling Learning for hour. This way they get instant feedback and grading for all of their homework, so they can kind of go through and get hints and a little bit more activity in their homework rather than just hoping that they did it and maybe handed it. Going through this, first few years I was teaching it, it occurred to me very early on that with the flipped classroom, it was built as a hybrid course. Almost everything we're doing is already online. The only thing that we're doing that isn't very in person is this clicker class component. So the question was, we've made this leap and it's going well. We know that the students at Lehman, and especially the students in my 114 class, a lot of them are already professionals, already doing things, trying to get another degree to move up within nursing. They're very busy. What if we could give them even more flexibility that they don't even have to come in class during the day? They can manage this outside. So I wanted to take a lot of the tools that we are already using for the videos in the lecture to do the online component, but then try to make up the difference of what we were doing in class versus what we could offer them at home. So for the online class, the vast majority is actually exactly the same as we're offering in person, except now instead of clicker class, we developed these guided problem-solving assignments, which I'll talk about in most depth today. So what I wanted to look at first is, what is clicker class? I'm not going to talk too much about it, because there is a whole talk about it, but clicker class is where they go in. They obviously get course content. They're going through questions for whatever unit you're going over. You're prompting them with questions, you're seeing the class response, you're discussing this live with people. The students have a chance to talk to one another and are encouraged to talk to one another throughout class. There's the professor and usually a number of teaching assistants or tutors that are there so that during the course of the active learning activity of clicker class, they have a chance to get feedback on their work while they're confused about things. So this is not only just the questions, but it's really, this is the moment for all that interaction. So how do you make that work online? So for the course content, the actual questions, no problem. We can port that over in some other form and get the same content coverage. But how do you make these interactions work? So for instructor interactions, my intention was to have weekly course announcements that I'm, at least weekly, if not more, that I'm always giving them information and reaching out with updates about what's going on. I make myself very available for email. I encourage them to email me, and I attempt to get back to everyone quickly, which is its own adventure. We have discussion boards that they are encouraged to post on, they are required to post on, and then I monitor and reply to things as well. And then I offer both in-person and virtual office hours, because most of the students, even if they're taking the online course, they do come in for the lab and other activities on campus. And then peer interactions, I've found it a little bit harder. So discussion boards are a chance for them to talk directly to each other. We'll talk through the guided problem solving, is what I'm keep referring to as GPS. These have a component of them that they get to see each other's work. And then we do have one big collaborative assignment. So for the online course, the biggest part was departmental requirement. We were not going to try to do online exams. So it is only an online course, not fully online. They do come in 3 times over the course of the semester, and then once for the final to take exams in person. Same exams as the other classes. Mixed up questions, answers, but everything's created the same. We do use 2 distinct course platforms. So we build everything through Blackboard, but since the flipped classroom was built through Sapling, we use everything still on the Sapling site. The course was divided into weekly course modules. We cover 16 units. This actually means that for many weeks we have to cover 2 units at once, so the workload is pretty high. For what they're actually doing online, that gets everything that they get their points and grades from. We do self-assessment of learning goals and reflection, and they get points for making sure that they watch the videos and tell us that they watch the videos. The guided problem-solving assignments I'm going to speak more about, but I keep referencing them. And then they do get points that are required to make discussion board posts, and they have all of the homework assignments that are the same as the flipped course. So this is just what you click into any of the units, and this is kind of what you see. And it's very clearly designated what assignments are through Sapling and that's a link, and then what assignments are through that have to be conducted on Blackboard. So then the guided problem solving was, I actually ended up using VoiceThread to try our best to mimic the experience of Clicker Plus. Was that I can post the slides that we would normally do in class, and I actually, instead of in class, we go through questions, and then I explain everything, and we work through solutions. For VoiceThread, we post the questions, and then I have created videos of those worked solutions. So the student gets to see the question first, then gets to see my explanation, and then the students can respond to the questions and post their own solutions and comments. So this is where I'm going to see if I can switch over to a video. I have this blocked out, but seeing how the course interacts, I think, is valuable. So this is just screen capture of this semester's course. So there's announcements because we're almost done. But you click into the weekly module, whatever unit we're covering, sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 2. You can click into the modules for that unit. You click into for that unit, and then guided problem solvings are hosted through Blackboard. VoiceThread is a tool that's attached to it, so it works really smoothly. And then each class starts the same way. We get some kind of definitions at the beginning to just review material. I can actually include
While Unit 7 may seem like an intimidating amount of math,
comes
it is
right after
focused
the
on the
first exam.
concept of how we
So I
as
include
chemists
a little video at
describe
the
matter,
beginning,
specifically quantities
kind
of
of
matter.
catching us all back up and making sure
Imagine
we're
you're
on
in a
the same page.
chemistry lab and someone hands
So
you a
it
sample of
gives you the
calcium
moment
nitrate.
of things that we would
In
normally.
Unit 3, we
It's not
talked about how
quite
we can build
lecture
chemical
material
formulas
that
and
covers in
name
the
different
course content
compounds.
for the video,
But now we are going to
but
work
it
on
is
how you can
additional
describe
information
how
that I
much of
know
a
if I
compound you
was
have.
in class with these
For
students,
example,
I would
of
give them a
calcium
recap.
nitrate, we
So
are talking
with
about a
VoiceThread, I
solid
can make
compound
a
in the
small
form of
video
a powder.
recap.
How would
and
you
then
tell
get
someone how much
kind of the
calcium nitrate
same
you have? Your initial
information
description
that I'd like to
will
give.
probably be based
So
on
this
a macroscopic scale, since that's what we can
It's
easily
also
observe.
a preview of kind of how
For
our
a
videos
solid
run, is
sample,
that they are
we would
voiceover
measure the amount
PowerPoints.
using
So
either
this one's
mass
not very dynamic. All of VoiceThread also allows you to change the speed. So knowing that I wasn't going to make it watch the whole video, possibilities.
Of the appropriate units. These could be
I
grams,
do
liters, or
speak more slowly, so right now I have it at 1.5 because that's plenty enough. So we give them example problems, that these are problems they can go into, look at the question, but then they have the worked solution open to
begin any
them.
conversion question, you should start by finding your starting
These
value.
are always
For
there.
example, we start with
They're not
3.6 grams of
required to
water.
answer or grade
Next, you should
these
figure out what you're
questions.
looking for. We want to
But
find
you
the number
get-
of moles of water.
They're the
All
same
quantities
questions
by
as the
looking at
clicker
water.
questions, so
We
they
call
are
our
usually
molecules.
presented as
So that's
multiple
what
choice.
things.
Not
Now you just have to go
exclusively,
from grams to
but we
moles.
usually stick to
The
it.
conversion factor linking
Because
grams to
their
moles is
exams
the
are going to
molecular
be
weight or
multiple
molar
choice, so
mass.
we keep
It
everything
calculates your
consistent.
water from chemical formula.
But you
So now we
get
start our calculation.
an
We have
idea
3.6
of
grams
kind
of
of
water.
how
We use the
information is
molecular weight as a
presented,
conversion factor.
and they get
Notice that
these
the 18 is on the bottom of
solutions
the
and
conversion factor.
examples.
This is so the units of grams can cancel out. And we end up with our answer in moles.
Pardon my chipmunk voice. So there are 4 example problems for each unit, and then it switches over to what are the actual assignment. And there are now 4 more questions, and here they are just given the question. And this is where the students have to post. So this is my apology, the one place where you see the names. But we have the students now have to post their own responses and answers. And depending on what kind of question it is, they can do this through text or audio, or they make their own videos. And sometimes the videos are just them holding the phone up to a piece of paper where they have the work written out, very often sideways. And sometimes they have big narrated videos where they tell you everything they're doing. And some people prefer to just type it up, which helps with handwriting. So that's a good option too. So this was just an idea, and they do this for each question, and those responses are not visible to each other immediately. So let's see if we're back here. So what you just saw is there are 4 worked problems, that these are open to them as a chance to try things, but with nothing on the line. They can try the problems, but then they get the information right away of whether they're right or wrong, and hopefully an explanation that clarifies anything that they might be still confused on. And then we move to the graded questions where they post their feedback. So for these features, for these comments, when they do them, they're moderated comments, so I can see all the students' comments, but the students can't see each other's. So this way, People can do them at any time during the week. They can all post, and they don't see one another's answers. They have to come up with their own original answer. And then once the deadline passes, I go through and I hand grade all of this, and then I can make selected students' answers visible to the rest of the class. So I go through and I pick at least 2 usually really good examples or explanations, and I let the students see each other's. So this way they get to see my explanations, because I also post my own solutions to all of these. So they have a PDF of all the slides and all of the solutions. But they also see how their classmates do it. Some of them explain things very differently than I would explain it. So it gives you that, hopefully, mimic of the peer-to-peer explanations. The other thing that I do that is one of the times where you get more feedback between students that I really enjoyed, but it's more time consuming, so we only do it at the end of the semester, is this collaborative review assignment, where we take all 16 units and every student in the class picks one of the units or a subset of one of the units. I divide them into however many students I have. And they make their own review slides. And this time, instead of me making a voice thread with all the slides and then commenting on it, they populate the voice thread. Because they make their own slides, some of them make their own videos, and they put it together. That each student is responsible for a piece. They put everything up, and then the students comment on each other's work and ask questions, and they also post worked problems and their solutions for old exam problems from their topic. So this, people do all sorts of really creative things, and you get a lot of personality through these slides because everybody formats them differently, and we got a lot of memes last semester, but they're really informative. They're worried about studying for all this. Some of it uses content from our own videos and our own materials that we've given them that they then give back to us with an explanation or a summary. And a lot of them come up with things from other resources on the internet that they're using. For their explanation, some people still write out everything by hand and then they include photos. But they've been I've really enjoyed seeing what they bring back for this, because it's really, I think it's kind of inspiring that they pull from so many different places, and they're able to really kind of synthesize and summarize material at a pretty high level for the course content. And I think that it helps them see each other's work and feel more involved in the class. Unfortunately, it does take a bit more time for them to put this kind of thing together, so I haven't figured out a way to do it more in this class. Quickly, very preliminarily, I haven't done statistics on this because we have a lot of variables between the classes, so our numbers are significantly different, or our N numbers are very different, so we don't have statistics for this right now. I'm going to do a more controlled look at it next year. But just initially comparing 2 semesters of the 3 different sections, we have the online section, a main big section, that's their Tuesday, Thursday class, that's the most of the students, and then we have a Sunday section. Both of those are taught as flipped. Mine's taught as online, 3 different instructors. We don't see any discernible patterns in the differences between each section grades for any given exam. There's differences, but which one's at the bottom changes for every exam. So we haven't figured out a pattern. And then even comparing the same instructor, same method between semesters is different. So nothing is obviously different here, but we'll look at it more in the future. But so far, no red flags. And then what we also were looking for is that the exams are the same for all the sections, but what you have to do to get all these coursework points is different, whether you're going to class and doing clickers, or whether you're doing all of these extra online things. So I was curious to see if what students are getting points versus on exams versus these coursework points was any different. And from here, once again, not statistically studied yet, but we don't see anything stand out as obvious, that some of the classes are higher than us, some of the classes are lower than us. None of the modalities stick out. So we'll see how that story develops. But what I have been working on is trying to figure out, this was my first foray into teaching online, I think that there's a huge amount of things that everyone I've ever talked to that teaches online has the same comments, but these were kind of my concerns. One of the big things that we believe has helped student performance, especially underprepared student performance within the flipped classroom, is the amount of structure and scaffolding there are in the course deadlines and in how many assignments there are, and the order, suggestion, and kind of forced order of when you're doing what. It teaches the students a way to study, a way to start scaffolding their learning and putting things together. And switching to online, all of the advice is you're doing this to make it flexible for the students because these are people who don't necessarily have the time to do it exactly when you want. So we make it asynchronous, we make it flexible, we limit how many deadlines there are to just 2 a week. But with that flexibility, I feel like we lose some of that structure. So just like everybody else, you see something's due at Thursday night at 11:55, everybody's doing it Thursday night at 11 o'clock, and they're doing 6 things at the same time, which is not ideal. So I don't have a solution for that. Right now, the GPS assignments, I grade everything by hand, because when I don't, in class, when students are stuck, they raise their hand, you go talk to them. You see their work, you hear the way they're thinking. You can give them better feedback. The GPS assignments, by having everyone answer every question and me go through every question, I can give that personalized feedback on what they're doing, where their mistakes are. It takes a long time. So in clicker class, everything's multiple choice, and it's graded automatically. Here, we're talking 4 questions per unit, 25 students in the class, often 2 units a week. So that's 200 course videos I have to watch, or text or something. So this has been a bit cumbersome, and also moving grades back and forth between the 2 platforms. So this is the reason why so far, even though the online class is going well, we haven't scaled it up. This is kind of a barrier to that. And then the interactions that I'm trying to feed into the course the whole time don't always flow naturally. So I contact them about a lot of things. Individual students will ask me questions and send me emails, but the discussion boards, I haven't found a way to make it feel like they're actually using it the way I intend. There's a lot of, all right, I have to post twice, so I post twice. And a lot of the posts are just, I don't get this, without a real question. And then I go back and challenge, what are you, to try to get information from it. But it's not quite the natural peer-to-peer instruction I was looking for. So we're seeing that a little bit limited. And so far, despite 3 semesters of offering virtual office hours, not a single student has taken me up on virtual office hours. So I don't know what the disconnect is there. But, so that's all for the moment. I'm happy to take all questions. Pam Mills and Don McGregor were the people who developed this flipped classroom. We've had a ton of instructors that have been really helpful. And I was able to, early in my time here at Lehman, participate in 2 different online learning workshops and programs that were super helpful for me. So, thank you.
Melissa, when you did the voice read and students started to participate, how many students were in this section?
25.
And did you find it sort of clunky around these various student comments, or did it seem to work kind of smoothly to have the 25?
The first week of class, we do kind of warm-up introduction activities so that they get used to the software. First 2 weeks of class, they don't know how to use any of the software. They're figuring out Tabling, they're figuring out Blackboard. So the technology issues are clunky the first week, but they get it often faster than a lot of faculty do. So that, yeah, they adapt to that pretty quickly. The first semester, I was really surprised because I did get a lot of, the first semester I got a particularly high number of older students who were not very comfortable with the internet, which I thought was confusing of why you'd self-select an online course. But since then, it's kind of modulated, and the software part of it, they get pretty quickly. The voice threads, some people are naturally really good at it, and they make very pretty, wonderful videos, and those are the ones that tend to get, revealed to the class more often, are the people that have the best presentations. Some people do perfect work, but it's in scribbled handwriting, and they don't know how to light a camera. So some of them are easier to grade than others for me, but I wouldn't say it's clunky because I get to look at everybody's, and then what I share are the ones that are most accessible to more people.
Great, thanks.
Yes.
I just had a question. You refer to it as an online class, but you said they're required to come on campus to
Yes.
complete 3 exams. Is that because Lehman does not have an online proctoring software application?
So we went with the online versus the fully online. So we
So
went
you
with the
categorize courses as online
or
and
fully
online.
is our coding for it. So
Okay.
this is online with in-person exams. We don't have, based on when I started, a proctoring system that I felt sufficient.
Mhm.
I think that there's been movement in that since I did this is the 3rd semester. But also this course in the chemistry department, in the in-person classes, is a class that is very highly monitored during the exams because it's one of the things of you get a C in this, you don't get in the nursing program.
Right.
So they feel very stressed about it. So we have had a history of cheating problems.
Mhm.
So we didn't want to, for this, we have 300 students, 25 of them are in my class. We don't want that to be unequal. So we wanted it to be as seamless as possible in comparison so that everybody felt everything was fair. So right now we're just keeping it in person. But it does give us interesting scheduling issues.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good question, Amy.
Mhm.
Did I need-
Yes.
Is there update on the online proctoring?
We currently do not have that, and there's a reason for it. The majority of our students actually take a combination of on-campus and online classes, right? We do have 5 online programs currently with very moderate enrollment, and we have a large number of online, hybrid, and what Melissa is referring to, what we call this is an online class. We also have fully online. So the online class, there might be a requirement to come into campus to take a midterm or a final. And the assumption, and I guess the practice is based on the fact that most of the students also take on-campus classes. So it's not your traditional fully online,
Right.
live far away.
So how is your hybrid defined? Do you have a hybrid definition?
We could,
what
talk about it,
separates-
The flipped classroom is designated as a hybrid class. So that is they come in twice a week and sit in a classroom with a teacher, but they have a significant component of the work and what's graded that is online.
We have, it's 33, there's a CUNY-wide definition that all of the CUNY schools have to abide by, so it's 33 to 80%, I think it's 80%. That is, theater takes some time. It's very, and there are different variations in terms of what departments and specific disciplines decide on in terms of how many, sometimes you have a department that would meet every 2 weeks, other classes would say, meet every week, but for shorter time. Others, have, let's say, they start fully online, then they come in person for a few weeks. So there's a wide range of things.
For this class specifically, the perspective is that this is not its own class that doesn't have an in-person counterpart. This is one large class with 3 different sections, and we wanted to make sure that the experience for those students and how they feel they're being graded and evaluated is the same, so that it's not that everyone's trying to register for one or the other because that's how you get your A. That's what we wanted to avoid. That if it was just online, there's plenty of ways, interesting ways to do it, but since we have so many people taking it in person, we wanted to mimic that.
Yes, it's time for the next session. It's